Human baby rang the fire alarm to alert nurses about a collapsing bear cub. What happened next was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning shift at Pine Valley Medical Center started like any other Tuesday. Rain drummed against the windows, while the smell of fresh coffee mixed with that clean hospital scent that never really went away. Nurse Arya Chen pushed her cart down the pediatric wing, checking on the overnight patients. The hallway was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors and the occasional cry from the nursery. In room 214, 18-month-old baby Zara sat in her hospital crib, playing with colorful blocks. She had been brought in 3 days ago after a high fever, but now she was much better. Her parents had gone home to shower and grab some clothes, planning to return by noon. Zara's big brown eyes followed every movement in the hallway through her open door. Arya paused at Zara's room and smiled. "Good morning, little one. How are we feeling today?" Zara responded with excited babbling and reached her tiny arms toward Arya. The nurse stepped inside and gently lifted the toddler, bouncing her softly. "Your mama and papa will be back soon, okay?" As Arya held Zara near the window, both of them looked out at the forest that surrounded the hospital. The trees were thick and green, creating a natural wall between the medical center and the wilderness beyond. Pine Valley Medical Center was the only hospital for 50 miles, serving both the small town and the rural communities scattered throughout the mountain region. Suddenly, Zara stopped babbling. Her small body tensed in Arya's arms, and she pressed her face against the window glass. Her tiny finger pointed towards something in the distance, near the edge of the parking lot where the forest began. "What is it, sweetie?" Arya followed Zara's gaze but saw nothing unusual. Just trees swaying in the wind and rain creating small puddles on the asphalt. But Zara kept pointing, her breathing becoming faster. She made urgent sounds, almost like she was trying to tell Arya something important. Arya squinted through the rain-streaked glass. For a moment, she thought she saw a dark shape moving between the trees, but it could have been a shadow or her imagination. The morning was gray and misty, making it hard to see clearly. "I don't see anything, baby girl," Arya said softly. But Zara became more agitated. The toddler pushed against the window with both hands, making frustrated noises. Her face scrunched up like she was about to cry, but instead of tears, determination filled her eyes. Arya had never seen a baby react this way. In her 10 years of nursing, she had learned to read children's signals, but this was different. Zara wasn't scared or uncomfortable. She was trying to communicate something urgent, something that her 18-month-old vocabulary couldn't express. The baby twisted in Arya's arms, reaching toward the door. When Arya didn't move, Zara let out a sharp cry that echoed down the hallway. Other nurses looked up from their stations, wondering what was wrong. Okay, Arya whispered, walking toward the door with Zara still in her arms. "Let's go see what has you so worked up." As they stepped into the hallway, Zara immediately turned toward the main corridor that led to the hospital's front entrance. She pointed again, this time with both hands, making insistent sounds that grew louder with each step they took away from that direction. Nurse Marcus Williams approached from the nurse's station. "Everything all right with our little friend here?" "She's upset about something outside," Arya explained, adjusting Zara's position. "Been pointing toward the forest and getting more worked up by the minute." Marcus peered out the nearest window. Probably saw a deer or something. Kids love animals. But Zara's reaction suggested this was more than simple curiosity about wildlife. The baby's whole body remained tense, and she kept making those urgent sounds while pointing toward the front of the hospital. As they walked closer to the main entrance, Zara's excitement grew. She bounced in Arya's arms and reached toward the large windows that faced the parking lot and forest edge. The rain had stopped, but heavy clouds still blocked most of the morning sun. That's when Arya saw it. Near the tree line, about 50 yards from the hospital's main entrance, something small and dark lay motionless on the wet grass. At first glance, it looked like a pile of old clothes or maybe trash that had blown from somewhere. But as Arya stared harder, she realized the shape was too rounded, too organic. "Marcus," she called quietly, not wanting to alarm other patients. "Come look at this." Marcus joined her at the window, and together they studied the dark shape. Zara had grown quiet now, as if she knew the adults were finally paying attention to what she had been trying to show them. "Is that—" Marcus started, then stopped. "Is that an animal?" Before Arya could answer, the shape moved slightly. Just a small shift, like something struggling to breathe. Both nurses pressed closer to the glass, their hearts beginning to race. "We need to call security," Marcus said, but Arya was already thinking of something else. The way Zara had reacted, the urgency in her movements, the insistent pointing. Somehow, this 18-month-old baby had noticed the creature's distress before any of the adults had even looked outside. "How did she know?" Arya whispered, looking down at Zara, who was now calm but still watching the motionless shape through the window. The baby looked up at Arya with those big brown eyes, and for just a moment, the nurse felt like this tiny child understood far more than should be possible. There was something in Zara's expression, a depth that made Arya's skin tingle with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Whatever was lying out there in the wet grass, Zara had been trying to help it. The question was, what were they going to do about it? Marcus reached for his radio to call security, but before he could speak into it, Zara let out another sharp cry. This time, she twisted so hard in Arya's arms that the nurse almost dropped her. The baby's face had turned red with frustration, and she was reaching toward something else entirely. "What now, sweetie?" Arya asked, but then she saw what had caught Zara's attention. On the wall, next to the main entrance, just 20 feet away from where they stood, was the bright red fire alarm pull station. It was mounted at adult height, about 4 feet from the ground, but Zara was stretching her entire body toward it with desperate determination. "She wants the fire alarm?" Marcus asked, confused. "But there's no fire." Arya stared at the baby, then back at the motionless shape outside, then at the fire alarm. A crazy thought began forming in her mind. "Marcus, what if she's trying to tell us something? What if she knows that pulling the alarm will get everyone's attention?" "That's impossible," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "She's just a baby." Zara's cries became more urgent. She kicked her legs and reached so hard toward the fire alarm that Arya had to grip her tighter to keep her from falling. The baby's eyes never left the red lever, and her whole body trembled with effort. "I've never seen anything like this," Arya whispered. "It's like she knows exactly what that alarm does." Other staff members were starting to notice the commotion. Dr. Patricia Reeves, the head of pediatrics, walked over with a concerned expression. "Is everything okay here?" Arya explained quickly. "There's something lying in the grass near the forest. It might be an injured animal." Dr. Reeves looked skeptical. "An 18-month-old can't understand cause and effect like that. She's probably just attracted to the bright red color." But, as if to prove the doctor wrong, Zara suddenly went completely quiet. She stopped struggling and turned to look directly at Dr. Reeves. For several seconds, the baby stared at the doctor with an intensity that made all 3 adults uncomfortable. Then, slowly and deliberately, Zara pointed first at the shape outside, then at the fire alarm, then back outside again. Did she just... Dr. Reeves started, then stopped. Did she just show me a sequence? The hallway had grown quiet around them. Other nurses, orderlies, and even a few patients' family members had gathered to watch the strange scene. Everyone could feel that something unusual was happening, but no one could quite understand what. Zara, seeing that she had everyone's attention, began making soft cooing sounds. She reached toward the fire alarm again, but this time her movements were gentle, almost pleading. Her big brown eyes moved from face to face, as if she was asking for help. "This is giving me chills," whispered Jenny Martinez, another nurse who had just arrived. "I've got 3 kids of my own, and I've never seen a baby act like this." Marcus lowered his radio. "Maybe we should just go outside and check on whatever's out there. If it's injured, we can call animal control." "Wait," Arya said suddenly. "Look at her now." Zara had stopped reaching for the fire alarm. Instead, she was looking out the window again, but her expression had changed completely. Her face showed what could only be described as worry. Real, genuine concern that seemed far too mature for such a young child. The shape outside hadn't moved in several minutes. Whatever it was, it might be dying. "I'm going out there," Arya announced, handing Zara to Marcus. But the moment the baby left Arya's arms, she began crying again. Not the frustrated cries from before, but heartbroken sobs that made everyone in the hallway feel uncomfortable. "She doesn't want you to go alone," Dr. Reeves observed. "Or maybe she doesn't want to be separated from whatever's happening." Zara's cries echoed through the pediatric wing, disturbing patients and worrying their families. Other babies in the nursery began crying in response, creating a chorus of distress that filled the entire floor. "This is disrupting the whole ward," Dr. Reeves said, but her tone wasn't angry. She sounded amazed. "In 25 years of medicine, I've never seen anything like this." Marcus tried bouncing Zara gently, but she only cried harder. She kept reaching toward the window, toward the fire alarm, toward Arya. Her small body shook with the intensity of her emotions. "Let me take her outside with me," Arya suggested. "Maybe if she sees that we're helping whatever's out there, she'll calm down." "Absolutely not," Dr. Reeves said firmly. "We don't know what's out there. It could be dangerous." But Zara's cries were getting louder, and now other children throughout the hospital were becoming upset. The sound carried through the ventilation system, creating a wave of distress that spread from floor to floor. "We have to do something," Jenny said. "She's affecting everyone." That's when security guard Tom Walsh appeared, slightly out of breath from jogging up from the main lobby. "What's all the noise about? Sounds like someone's in serious trouble up here." "The baby's trying to alert us to something outside," Arya explained quickly. "There's an injured animal or something near the forest edge, and she somehow knows it needs help." Tom looked skeptical, but before he could respond, Zara did something that made everyone freeze. She stopped crying completely and looked directly at Tom. Then, with careful deliberation, she pointed at his radio. She made soft sounds and reached toward it, just like she had done with the fire alarm. "She wants your radio?" Tom asked, confused. Zara nodded. An actual clear nod that made all the adults stare in shock. 18-month-olds don't nod to answer questions, Dr. Reeves said quietly. They don't understand abstract communication like that. But Zara had nodded, and now she was pointing outside again, then at Tom's radio, then back outside. The message was clear. Use the radio to get help for whatever was in the grass. Tom looked around at all the adults, then back at the baby. Slowly, he lifted his radio to his mouth. "Security to dispatch. We might have a situation outside the main entrance. possible injured animal near the tree line, requesting backup to investigate. The moment Tom finished speaking into his radio, Zara clapped her hands together and smiled. The sudden change from distress to joy was so dramatic that several nurses laughed despite their confusion. Did she just understand that he was calling for help? Marcus asked. That's impossible, Dr. Reeves repeated, but she didn't sound convinced anymore. Through the window, they could see 2 more security guards jogging across the parking lot toward the dark shape in the grass. Tom's radio crackled to life. "Tom, you need to see this," came the voice of guard Sarah Kim. "It's a bear cub. Looks like it's barely alive." The hallway erupted in gasps and worried murmurs. A bear cub meant there might be a mother bear nearby, which could be extremely dangerous. "Everyone, stay calm," Dr. Reeves announced loudly. "No one goes outside until security gives the all clear." But Zara was clapping her hands excitedly now, bouncing in Marcus's arms like she had just accomplished something wonderful. She looked around at all the adults with bright, proud eyes, as if she was pleased that they had finally understood her message. "How did she know?" Arya whispered, staring at the baby in amazement. How could she possibly have known it was a bear cub that needed help? Tom's radio crackled again. "The cub is dehydrated and hypothermic, but alive. We need medical assistance out here. And Tom, there are no signs of the mother bear. Looks like this little guy has been alone for a while." Dr. Reeves made a decision. "Jenny, get the emergency medical kit. Marcus, call veterinary services. We're going to help that cub." As the adults rushed to organize a rescue effort, Zara watched through the window with calm satisfaction. She had stopped trying to communicate urgently. Her job was done. Somehow, this 18-month-old child had orchestrated the rescue of a wild animal, using nothing but determination and an understanding of human behavior that should have been impossible at her age. But the biggest mystery was still to come. Because, as the adults would soon discover, Zara's connection to the bear cub was deeper and more extraordinary than any of them could have imagined. 10 minutes later, the pediatric wing had transformed into an impromptu command center. Dr. Reeves coordinated with veterinary services, while nurses prepared medical supplies that might help stabilize the bear cub until professional wildlife help arrived. Through it all, Zara sat contentedly in Marcus's arms, watching the activity with bright, alert eyes. "The vet says it'll be at least 40 minutes before they get here," Jenny reported, hanging up the phone. "Traffic's backed up on the mountain road because of an accident." "That cub might not have 40 minutes. Tom's voice crackled through his radio from outside. "Its breathing is getting shallower." Dr. Reeves looked torn. She was a pediatrician, not a veterinarian, but her medical oath compelled her to help any suffering creature. "I'm going out there," she decided. "If we can at least get some fluids into it." As the adults discussed emergency procedures, something strange began happening with Zara. The baby started making soft humming sounds, almost like she was singing a lullaby. The tune was unfamiliar, not like any children's song the nurses recognized. "That's pretty," Arya commented, pausing in her preparation of IV supplies. "Where did she learn that song?" Marcus shrugged. "Maybe her parents sing it to her." But Jenny frowned, listening more carefully. "I've worked at pediatrics for 15 years. I know every lullaby parents sing to their kids. I've never heard that melody before." The humming continued, and something remarkable happened. The other crying babies throughout the ward began to quiet down. One by one, the distressed sounds that had been echoing through the hospital faded away, replaced by an unusual calm. "Is it just me, or did the whole floor just get peaceful?" asked Dr. Reeves, looking around in wonder. Even more strange, Tom's radio remained quiet for several minutes. Usually, security maintained constant communication during an emergency, but now there was only silence from the team outside. Finally, Sarah's voice came through, sounding confused. "Tom, are you hearing this?" "Hearing what?" Tom responded. There's humming. It sounds like it's coming from the hospital, but we can hear it all the way out here, and the cub, it's responding to it." Everyone in the hallway turned to stare at Zara, who continued her soft, melodic humming while looking out the window toward where the bear cub lay. "That's impossible," Marcus whispered. "The windows are closed. Sound can't travel that far." But Tom's radio crackled again. The cub just lifted its head. It's looking toward the hospital, and its breathing seems to be getting stronger. Dr. Reeves felt goosebumps rise on her arms. This has to be a coincidence. Arya moved closer to the window, studying Zara's face as the baby continued humming. Look at her expression. She's not just making random sounds. She's trying to help that cub from here. Children her age don't have that kind of intentional behavior, Dr. Reeves protested, but her voice lacked its earlier certainty. The humming grew slightly louder, and Zara began swaying gently in Marcus's arms, almost like she was dancing to her own music. Her eyes remained fixed on the window, and her expression showed deep concentration. "Sarah, what's happening with the cub now?" Dr. Reeves asked into Tom's radio. "It's sitting up," came the amazed reply. "Still weak, but definitely more alert, and it keeps looking toward the hospital like it's listening to something." Jenny grabbed Arya's arm. "This is impossible, right? A baby can't communicate with a wild animal from this distance." "Everything about today has been impossible," Arya replied, her voice filled with wonder. Suddenly, Zara stopped humming and made an urgent sound. She pointed toward the elevator, then toward the main entrance, then back to the elevator. Her message was clear. She wanted to go downstairs. "Absolutely not," Dr. Reeves said firmly. "We're not taking a patient outside during a wildlife emergency." But Zara's face crumpled, and she began to cry again. Not the frustrated cries from before, but heartbroken sobs that seemed to express genuine grief. The sound was so mournful that several staff members felt tears spring to their own eyes. "She's breaking my heart," Jenny whispered. Marcus tried to comfort Zara, but she pushed away from him and reached toward the elevator with desperate longing. Her cries grew louder, and once again, babies throughout the hospital began responding with their own distressed sounds. That's when Dr. Patricia Chen, the hospital's chief administrator, appeared in the hallway. She looked harried and concerned. "What's going on up here? I'm getting calls from every department about crying babies and strange humming sounds." Dr. Reeves quickly explained the situation, from Zara's initial discovery of the bear cub to her apparent ability to calm it with humming. Dr. Chen listened with growing amazement. "You're telling me an 18-month-old orchestrated a wildlife rescue and can somehow communicate with a bear cub?" Dr. Chen asked. "I know how it sounds," Dr. Reeves replied, "but I've witnessed it myself." Tom's radio interrupted their conversation. "Medical team, we need you out here now. The cub just collapsed again, and it's not responding to anything." Zara's cries became frantic. She struggled so hard in Marcus's arms that he almost dropped her. She kept pointing toward the elevator, her face red with desperation. "Please," she seemed to be saying, though the word wasn't clear. "Please, please." Dr. Chen stared at the baby, then at the assembled staff, then out the window toward where the rescue team worked frantically over the small bear cub. "This goes against every protocol we have," she said slowly, "but nothing about this situation is normal." She paused, weighing the decision that could end her career or save a life. "Dr. Reeves, Take the baby down to the main entrance. Stay inside the building, but let her see what's happening. If there's even a small chance she can help." "Patricia, that's—" Dr. Reeves started to protest. "That's an order, Doctor," Chen said firmly. "Sometimes medicine requires us to think beyond textbooks." As they prepared to take the elevator down, something else extraordinary happened. Zara stopped crying and looked directly at Dr. Chen. The baby's expression was so mature, so full of gratitude that the administrator felt her breath catch. "Thank you," Zara seemed to say with her eyes, though no sound came out. The elevator ride down felt like it took forever. Zara sat quietly in Arya's arms, her small body tense with anticipation. When the doors opened at the main lobby, she immediately turned toward the large windows that faced the parking lot. Through the glass, they could see the rescue team working over the motionless bear cub. Tom, Sarah, and 2 other security guards surrounded the small brown form, while Dr. Reeves prepared emergency medical supplies. Zara pressed her face against the window and began humming again. This time, the melody was different, more urgent, more complex. The sound seemed to vibrate through the glass and carry across the parking lot. Within seconds, Tom's radio crackled to life. "The cub just moved. It's trying to lift its head again." Zara's humming grew stronger, and she placed her tiny hands flat against the glass. Her eyes were closed now, her face showing intense concentration, as if she was pouring all her energy into the sound she was making. "Its eyes are open," Sarah's voice reported. "It's looking right at the hospital." But then, something happened that made everyone freeze in shock. The bear cub, despite its weakness, began making soft sounds in response to Zara's humming. The 2 voices, human baby and wild animal, seemed to be singing together across the impossible distance between them. Are they having a conversation?" Marcus asked in amazement. Through the window, they could see the bear cub struggling to sit up, its small head turned toward the hospital building. Even from hundreds of feet away, there was no doubt that it was responding directly to Zara's sounds. "This isn't possible, Doctor," Chen whispered, but her eyes were filled with tears as she watched the impossible communication between baby and cub. Zara's humming began to slow, becoming softer and more rhythmic, like a lullaby again. The bear cub's responses grew gentler too, until both voices blended into a hauntingly beautiful melody that seemed to wrap around the hospital like a protective song. But just as everyone began to relax, thinking the crisis was over, Zara suddenly stiffened in Arya's arms. Her humming stopped abruptly, and her eyes snapped open, wide with what looked like fear. She turned away from the window and pointed toward the forest with trembling fingers. Her face had gone pale, and she began making sharp warning sounds that were completely different from her earlier communications. "What's wrong now?" Arya asked. But before anyone could answer, Tom's radio erupted with urgent voices. "We've got movement in the tree line," Sarah reported, her voice tight with tension. "Something big, and it's heading straight for us." The lobby fell silent except for the sound of everyone's rapid breathing. Through the window, they could see the security team backing away from the bear cub, their eyes fixed on the forest edge where something was moving between the trees. Zara's warning sounds became more frantic. She twisted in Arya's arms, pointing first at the forest, then at the bear cub, then back at the forest. Her tiny face showed genuine terror, but not for herself, for the people outside and the helpless cub lying in the grass. "It's the mother bear," Dr. Chen said quietly. "It has to be." Tom's voice came through the radio, tense and controlled. Everyone slowly back toward the building. No sudden movements. The cub is between us and whatever's coming out of those trees. But Zara shook her head violently and made different sounds, sharp, urgent barks that seemed to say, "No, no, no!" She pushed against Arya's arms, trying to get closer to the window, her small hands pressed against the glass. She doesn't want them to leave the cub, Arya realized, but if that's the mother bear coming... Through the trees, a massive, dark shape emerged. It was indeed a mother bear, but something was wrong with her movement. She wasn't charging aggressively toward her cub as they expected. Instead, she moved slowly, almost stumbling, her massive head swaying from side to side. "She's injured," Marcus observed, watching the bear's unsteady gait. "Look how she's favoring her left side." The mother bear was enormous, easily weighing 400 pounds, but as she approached her cub, her movements showed clear signs of distress. She would take a few steps, then pause and sway, as if fighting to stay upright. Zara's sounds changed again. The frantic warning calls became something else entirely. Soft, mournful cries that seemed to express sympathy and understanding. She was no longer trying to warn people away from danger. She was responding to a mother's pain. "Tom, hold your position," Dr. Chen called into the radio. "The mother bear appears to be injured. Don't do anything to provoke her, but don't abandon the cub either." The mother bear reached her cub and nuzzled it gently with her massive snout. The little one responded with weak sounds, trying to move closer to its mother's warmth. But the mother bear's legs gave out, and she collapsed heavily beside her cub, her breathing labored and shallow. "Oh my God," Jenny whispered, "they're both dying." Zara began crying. Not the frustrated cries from before, but deep, heartbroken sobs that seemed to come from her soul. She understood what was happening better than any of the adults. A mother and her baby were suffering, and time was running out for both of them. Dr. Reeves appeared in the lobby, having rushed down from upstairs with emergency supplies. "What's the situation?" "2 patients now," Dr. Chen said grimly. "Mother and cub, both in critical condition." "I can't treat a full-grown bear," Dr. Reeves protested. "Even if she's injured, she's still dangerous." But Zara had stopped crying and was staring intensely at Dr. Reeves. The baby reached toward the medical supplies, then pointed outside, then back at the supplies. Her meaning was clear: help them both. "She wants us to treat the mother too," Arya said softly. "That's impossible," Dr. Reeves replied. "We don't have the equipment or expertise for large animal surgery." Zara made a frustrated sound and began humming again. But this time, the melody was different from before, deeper, more complex, almost like she was singing harmony with herself. The sound was hauntingly beautiful and seemed to carry emotions that words couldn't express. Outside, both bears responded to the humming. The mother bear lifted her massive head and looked directly toward the hospital. Her small black eyes seemed to focus on the window where Zara sat, and for a moment the pain in her expression was replaced by something that looked almost like hope. "This is incredible," Marcus breathed. "She's communicating with both of them." The bear cub, drawing strength from its mother's presence and Zara's humming, managed to crawl closer to its mother's belly. The mother bear, despite her own weakness, curled her body protectively around her baby. "Tom, what's your assessment?" Dr. Chen asked into the radio. "The mother bear has what looks like a deep wound on her left flank," Tom reported. "Could be from another animal, or maybe she got caught in a trap. She's lost a lot of blood, but she's not showing any aggression. It's like she knows we're trying to help." Dr. Reeves watched the scene through the window, her medical training warring with common sense. "Even if I wanted to help, how could we possibly approach a wild bear?" That's when Zara did something that left everyone speechless. She stopped humming and looked directly at Doctor. Reeves. Then, clearly and unmistakably, she said her first word. Please. The word was perfectly pronounced, despite the fact that Zara's parents had told the staff she only babbled and made sounds. Everyone in the lobby stared at the 18-month-old in shock. Did she just... Dr. Reeves started. Please, Zara said again, reaching toward the medical supplies. Her voice was small but determined, and her eyes held a wisdom that seemed impossible for someone so young. Dr. Chen felt tears running down her cheeks. In 30 years of hospital administration, I've never seen anything like this. Outside, the mother bear's breathing was becoming more labored. She nuzzled her cub weakly, as if trying to say goodbye. The sight was heartbreaking, and several staff members were openly crying. We have to try, Doctor, Reeves said suddenly. I don't know how, but we have to try to help them. It's too dangerous, Marcus protested. If that bear feels threatened. But Zara shook her head and pointed at herself, then at the window, then at the bears. She began humming again, and both animals outside immediately became calmer. The mother bear's head settled onto the grass, but her eyes remained fixed on the hospital building. She's saying she can keep them calm, Arya realized. She wants to help us help them. Dr. Chen made another decision that would haunt or honor her for the rest of her career. Dr. Reeves, take an emergency trauma kit outside. Move slowly. Let the baby's humming guide you. Tom and Sarah will provide backup, but only intervene if absolutely necessary. Patricia, this is insane, Dr. Reeves said, but she was already gathering supplies. So is everything else that's happened today, Dr. Chen replied. Sometimes the impossible becomes necessary. As preparations began for the most unusual medical procedure in Pine Valley Medical Center's history, Zara continued her humming. But now there was something different in her voice. Determination mixed with hope, as if she knew that somehow everything was going to work out. The mother bear seemed to sense the approaching help. She made soft sounds to her cub, almost like she was explaining that the humans were coming to help them. The cub responded with tiny chirps, and together their voices blended with Zara's humming to create a song of trust and healing that filled the air around the hospital. But as Dr. Reeves stepped toward the exit door, medical kit in hand, Zara's humming suddenly shifted to a new melody, one that sounded almost like a warning. Not of danger, but of something else approaching. Something that would change everything they thought they knew about this extraordinary day. Through the forest, barely visible between the trees, other shapes began to move. Not threatening shapes, but curious ones. Word was spreading through the wilderness that something miraculous was happening at the human hospital, and the forest's inhabitants were coming to witness it. Deer stepped delicately to the edge of the tree line. A family of raccoons peered out from behind bushes. High above, hawks circled silently, watching the unprecedented gathering below. Even smaller creatures, squirrels, rabbits, and chipmunks, emerged from their hiding places to observe the scene. Are those animals gathering to watch? Jenny asked in amazement. It's like they know something special is happening, Marcus whispered. Zara's humming grew stronger, and her voice seemed to be calling to every creature within hearing distance. She wasn't just communicating with the bears anymore, she was somehow connecting with the entire forest. Dr. Reeves paused at the door, medical kit in hand, looking back at the baby who had orchestrated this impossible moment. How is this happening? She asked. Zara looked at her with those wise, ancient eyes and spoke her second clear word. Love. The simple word hung in the air like a prayer, and everyone understood. Whatever was happening between this extraordinary baby and the wild creatures outside wasn't just communication. It was something deeper, something that transcended species and touched the very heart of what it meant to care for another living being. As Dr. Reeves stepped outside to begin the most important medical procedure of her career, she carried with her not just medical supplies, but the power of a child's pure love that had somehow bridged the gap between human and animal worlds. The automatic doors whispered shut behind Dr. Reeves as she emerged into the cool morning air. The wet grass crunched softly under her feet as she approached the two bears, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The mother bear's massive head turned slightly toward her, but there was no aggression in those dark eyes, only exhaustion and a desperate plea for help. Inside the hospital, Zara's humming continued, floating through the glass and wrapping around the entire scene like a protective melody. The sound seemed to create an invisible barrier of calm that kept the mother bear relaxed despite a human approaching her most precious possession. "Easy, Mama," Dr. Reeves whispered, kneeling about 10 feet away from the bears. "We're here to help." Tom and Sarah flanked her at a safe distance, ready to react if the situation turned dangerous. But as Dr. Reeves opened her medical kit, something extraordinary happened. The mother bear slowly, deliberately, shifted her position to give the doctor better access to her wounded flank. She's cooperating," Sarah breathed into her radio. "It's like she understands what's happening." Dr. Reeves moved closer, her hand steady despite the surreal nature of the situation. The wound on the mother bear's side was deep and infected, clearly several days old. It looked like she had been caught in an illegal trap, the kind poachers sometimes set, despite the laws protecting wildlife in the area. "This is why she couldn't hunt," Dr. Reeves said softly. "She's been slowly starving because she couldn't provide for her cub." As she began cleaning the wound, the mother bear made soft sounds that seemed almost like gratitude. The cub, sensing its mother's calm, nuzzled closer to her belly and began making tiny contented chirps. Inside the hospital, something else was happening. Zara had stopped humming and was now staring intently at Dr. Chen with an expression of urgent concentration. The baby reached toward the elevator, then pointed upward, then back at Dr. Chen. "She wants us to go upstairs?" Dr. Chen asked, puzzled. Zara nodded firmly, and then did something that made everyone gasp. She pointed to herself, then to the ceiling, then made a cradling motion with her arms as if she was holding a baby. "Is she saying there's another baby upstairs?" Arya asked, her voice tight with concern. Zara's expression grew more urgent. She pointed upward again, this time with both hands, and made soft crying sounds that perfectly mimicked the distress calls of a very young animal. "Oh my God," Marcus whispered. "There might be another cub." Dr. Chen grabbed Tom's radio. "Tom, ask Dr. Reeves if bear cubs are usually born alone or in pairs." Outside, Dr. Reeves paused in her treatment of the mother bear. "Usually twins or triplets," she called back. "If there's one cub, there are probably others." The mother bear, hearing the conversation, became agitated for the first time since Dr. Reeves had approached. She tried to lift her head, making distressed sounds while looking toward the forest, then back at the hospital. Zara's humming resumed, but now it carried a note of urgency. She was trying to calm the mother bear while simultaneously communicating that there was indeed another cub somewhere. "Where would it be?" Dr. Chen asked into the radio. Tom scanned the area around them. If the mother was injured and couldn't travel far, the other cub might be hidden somewhere nearby. Bears often leave their young in safe places while they search for food. The mother bear's agitation grew stronger. Despite her weakness, she began trying to stand, her maternal instincts overriding her physical condition. Dr. Reeves had to pause her treatment as the massive animal struggled to get to her feet. "She's trying to show us something," Sarah observed. "Look where she's looking." The mother bear's gaze was fixed on a specific area of the forest, about 50 yards from where they stood. There was a rocky outcropping there, with several fallen logs and dense undergrowth that would provide perfect hiding spots for a small animal. Inside the hospital, Zara had begun making new sounds. Soft, plaintive calls that were different from anything she had produced before. These weren't directed at the bears outside, but seemed to be calling to something else, something farther away. "Is she trying to call to another cub?" Jenny asked in amazement. Marcus listened carefully to Zara's calls. "It sounds like she's imitating the distress calls of a very young bear, like she's trying to get it to respond." For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, faintly, carried on the morning breeze, came an answering call from the direction of the rocky outcropping. It was weak and thin, but unmistakably the cry of a baby animal in distress. "There." Sarah pointed toward the rocks. "Did you hear that?" The mother bear heard it too. She made desperate sounds toward the forest, then looked pleadingly at the humans surrounding her. Her message was clear. "Please find my other baby." Dr. Reeves looked at the half-treated wound on the mother bear's flank, then at the rocky area where the second cub was hiding. "I can't leave her like this. If I stop the treatment now, infection could set in." Tom made a decision. "Sarah, you stay here with Dr. Reeves. I'll go look for the other cub." But before anyone could move, Zara's voice came clearly through Tom's radio. Someone inside the hospital was holding the device close to the window where she sat. "Help," the baby said clearly, her small voice carrying across the parking lot. "Baby help." The words were simple, but they galvanized everyone into action. Tom headed toward the rocky outcropping while Dr. Reeves continued working on the mother bear. Sarah maintained her position between them, ready to coordinate if things went wrong. As Tom approached the fallen logs, Zara's calling sounds grew more intense. She seemed to be guiding him, her voice rising and falling to indicate direction. When he moved toward the right spot, her sounds became encouraging. When he veered away, they became urgent corrections. "It's like she's giving me directions," Tom reported through his radio. The gathered forest animals watched the scene with unusual stillness. Deer stood motionless at the forest edge, their large eyes tracking Tom's movements. Ravens perched silently in the trees above, as if they too were invested in the outcome of this rescue. Tom reached the rocky area and began searching carefully among the fallen logs and dense brush. Zara's guidance became more specific, short, sharp sounds when he was close, longer calls when he needed to adjust his position. Finally, wedged between two large rocks in a space barely big enough for a small animal, Tom found the second cub. It was even smaller than the first, probably the runt of the litter, and it was in terrible condition. Its tiny body was cold and barely moving, its breathing so shallow it was almost undetectable. "Found it," Tom called out. "But it's in bad shape, worse than the first one." The mother bear, hearing Tom's report, made heartbroken sounds. Even in her own pain, her maternal anguish was evident to everyone present. Dr. Reeves worked faster on the mother's wound, knowing that time was running out for the second cub. "Can you bring it here?" she called to Tom. "It's so weak I'm afraid to move it," Tom replied. "I think it's hypothermic." Inside the hospital, Zara suddenly went completely still. Her humming stopped, and she stared out the window with an intensity that made everyone around her uncomfortable. Her small body began to tremble, not with cold or fear, but with some kind of intense concentration. "What's she doing now?" Dr. Chen asked nervously. Then Zara began to glow. It started as a barely perceptible warmth emanating from her skin, so subtle that at first the adults thought they were imagining it. But the glow grew stronger. a soft golden light that seemed to come from within the baby's body. "That's not possible," Marcus whispered, but he couldn't deny what he was seeing. The light wasn't harsh or frightening. It was warm and comforting, like sunlight filtering through leaves or the glow of a fireplace on a cold evening. It pulsed gently in rhythm with Zara's heartbeat, and as it grew brighter, the temperature in the lobby began to rise. Outside, Tom felt the change immediately. "The air around the cub is getting warmer," he reported in amazement. "I can actually feel heat radiating from somewhere." The tiny cub in the rocks began to stir. Its breathing deepened, and it made small sounds as the warmth returned to its body. The glow from Zara seemed to be reaching across the impossible distance, sharing her life force with the dying animal. "This isn't medically possible," Dr. Reeves said, but she could see the second cub responding to whatever was happening. Its eyes opened for the first time, and it began moving with more strength. The mother bear, sensing her second baby's revival, made sounds of joy despite her own pain. She tried again to stand, wanting to go to both her cubs, but Dr. Reeves gently encouraged her to stay still while the treatment continued. Inside the hospital, Zara's glow began to fade, but her expression showed deep satisfaction. She had somehow shared her own life energy with the dying cub, giving it the strength it needed to survive until proper help could arrive. "Tom, can you bring the cub over here now?" Dr. Reeves asked. "It's moving around," Tom reported with wonder in his voice. "Still weak, but definitely alive and alert. I think it's safe to transport." As Tom carefully lifted the second cub and began walking back toward the group, something else began happening in the forest. The gathering of wildlife that had been watching silently started making sounds of their own. Not distress calls, but what sounded almost like celebration. Birds began singing in harmonious choruses. Deer made soft sounds to each other. Even the smaller creatures, squirrels and chipmunks, chattered excitedly from their perches in the trees. "It's like they're all rejoicing," Sarah observed in wonder. Dr. Chen, watching from inside the hospital, felt tears streaming down her face. "What kind of child is she?" she whispered. Zara, now looking tired but content, reached up and touched the window glass with her small hand. For just a moment, the golden glow returned, brighter than before, and everyone watching felt a wave of pure love and joy wash over them. Outside, as Tom approached with the second cub, the mother bear's eyes filled with what could only be described as grateful tears. She watched as both her babies were brought together, alive and growing stronger by the minute. But the most extraordinary moment was yet to come. As Dr. Reeves finished treating the mother bear's wound, and Tom placed the second cub beside its sibling, Zara spoke one more word that would change everything. "Family," she said clearly, her small voice carrying across the distance between the hospital and the bears. And in that moment, everyone present understood that they had witnessed something far beyond a medical emergency, or even an unusual animal rescue. They had been part of a miracle that proved the power of love to transcend every boundary, between species, between worlds, between the possible and the impossible. As the golden glow faded from Zara's skin, the baby settled back into Arya's arms with a deep, contented sigh. But something had changed in her appearance. Her eyes, which had always been a warm brown, now held flecks of gold that seemed to shimmer in the hospital's fluorescent lighting. Her skin had a subtle luminescence that hadn't been there before, as if some of that inner light had permanently awakened. Outside, the reunion of the bear family was progressing beautifully. The mother bear, her wound now properly cleaned and bandaged, was able to nuzzle both her cubs with gentle affection. The first cub, stronger now after receiving IV fluids, crawled eagerly toward its sibling. The second cub, revived by Zara's mysterious intervention, responded with tiny chirps of joy. Dr. Reeves stepped back to admire her work, but as she did, she noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. The mother bear's wound, which had been deep and infected just minutes before, was healing at an impossible rate. The edges of the gash were already beginning to close, and the angry red inflammation was fading to a healthy pink. "This can't be happening," Dr. Reeves whispered, but Tom and Sarah could see it too. "The wound's closing on its own," Tom reported through his radio, his voice filled with disbelief. Inside the hospital, Dr. Chen grabbed the radio. "What do you mean, closing on its own?" "I mean, it's healing faster than should be possible," Dr. Reeves replied. "The infection is clearing, the tissue is regenerating. I've never seen anything like it in 30 years of medicine." Everyone in the lobby turned to stare at Zara, who was now sleeping peacefully in Arya's arms. The baby's breathing was deep and regular, but her skin still held that subtle golden glow, pulsing gently with each heartbeat. "She's healing the mother bear too," Marcus said quietly, "even while she's sleeping." Dr. Chen felt her worldview shifting fundamentally. Everything she had believed about medicine, about what was possible in the human body, was being challenged by an 18-month-old child who seemed to possess abilities that defied scientific explanation. "We need to contact her parents," Dr. Chen said finally. "They need to know what's happening." But Jenny, who had been quietly observing from the side, stepped forward with a troubled expression. "Dr. Chen, there's something about that. I was reviewing Zara's admission paperwork earlier, and there are some inconsistencies." "What kind of inconsistencies?" Dr. Chen asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. "The parents who brought her in, they said their names were Michael and Lisa Thompson. But when I tried to verify their insurance information, there's no record of them in any database. No social security numbers, no driver's licenses, no medical history. It's like they don't exist." The lobby fell silent except for the sound of Zara's peaceful breathing and the distant celebration of forest animals outside. "That's impossible," Arya said. "I spoke with them. They were real people." "I'm not saying they weren't real," Jenny replied carefully. "I'm saying there's no official record of them anywhere. And there's something else. The address they gave, I looked it up. It's in the middle of the state forest, miles from any road or structure." Dr. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you suggesting?" "I don't know what I'm suggesting," Jenny admitted. "But nothing about this child is normal. Maybe nothing about her origins is normal either." Outside, the veterinary team finally arrived, their van pulling into the parking lot with lights flashing. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the lead wildlife veterinarian, jumped out with her equipment, ready to take over the care of the bear family. But as she approached the scene, she stopped in amazement. "Tom, your radio report said the mother bear was critically injured. This animal looks healthy." Dr. Reeves showed Dr. Martinez the before and after photos on her phone. "This was the wound 30 minutes ago. This is what it looks like now." Dr. Martinez stared at the images in disbelief. This level of healing would take weeks, even with the best veterinary care. "What did you do?" "We didn't do anything, Doctor," Reeves replied honestly. "It just happened." Inside the hospital, Zara stirred in Arya's arms and opened her eyes. But instead of the sleepy confusion typical of a waking toddler, her gaze was immediately alert and focused. She looked around the lobby, then at each of the adults, as if she was assessing the situation. When her eyes met Dr. Chen's, the administrator felt a jolt of recognition that she couldn't explain. It was as if she was looking into the eyes of someone she had known for years, someone wise and ancient and infinitely compassionate. "Who are you?" Dr. Chen whispered, not really expecting an answer. But Zara smiled. Not the innocent smile of a baby, but something deeper and more knowing. She reached up and touched Dr. Chen's face with her small hand, and for a moment, the administrator felt a wave of peace and understanding wash over her. Images flashed through Dr. Chen's mind. Forests and mountains, streams and meadows, all filled with animals living in harmony. She saw Zara not as a human child, but as something else entirely. A guardian spirit, perhaps, or an angel sent to bridge the gap between the human and natural worlds. When the vision faded, Dr. Chen found herself crying tears of joy and wonder. "You're here to help them," she said to Zara. "All of them, the animals, the forest, everything." Zara nodded gravely, then spoke her fourth clear word, "protect." Outside, Dr. Martinez was conducting a thorough examination of all three bears, her instruments confirming what everyone could see with their naked eyes. All three animals were not just healthy, but thriving. Their vital signs were perfect, their energy levels high, their bodies showing no signs of the trauma they had endured. "I'm going to need to file a very unusual report about this," Dr. Martinez said, shaking her head in amazement. "In 20 years of wildlife medicine, I've never seen anything like this recovery rate." As she spoke, something else extraordinary began happening. The gathered forest animals, which had been watching from a respectful distance, began approaching the bears. But instead of the territorial behavior typical of wild animals, they seemed to be paying their respects. A magnificent stag stepped forward first, lowering his antlered head in what looked unmistakably like a bow. The mother bear responded with gentle sounds, as if accepting the gesture of respect. One by one, other animals followed. Deer, raccoons, even the birds from the trees descended to perch nearby. "It's like they're having some kind of ceremony," Sarah observed in wonder. Tom nodded, watching the unprecedented gathering. "Like they're acknowledging something important has happened here." Inside the hospital, Zara was becoming restless again. She pointed toward the exit, then toward the bears, then back at herself. Her meaning was clear. She wanted to be outside with the animals. "Absolutely not," Dr. Chen said firmly. "You're still a patient here, and it's not safe." But Zara's expression grew sad, and she began making soft sounds that tugged at everyone's hearts. She wasn't crying or throwing a tantrum like a normal toddler might. Instead, she seemed to be expressing a deep longing to be with the creatures she had helped save. "She belongs with them," Arya said suddenly, surprising herself with the words. "I don't know how I know that, but she does." Marcus looked at Arya in confusion. "She's a human baby. She belongs with her parents." "Does she?" Jenny asked quietly. "Parents who don't exist in any database? Parents who gave an address in the middle of the wilderness? Maybe she doesn't have human parents at all?" The possibility hung in the air like a question that no one wanted to answer. If Zara wasn't an ordinary human child, then what was she? And what were their responsibilities toward her? Outside, the bears were showing signs of preparing to leave. The mother bear was testing her strength, standing and walking in small circles. Both cubs were active and playful, chasing each other around their mother's legs. Dr. Martinez had pronounced them all fit for release back into the wild. But the mother bear kept looking toward the hospital building, as if she was waiting for something. Her dark eyes remained fixed on the windows where she somehow knew Zara was watching. "She wants to see the baby," Tom observed. "The bear wants to see Zara." Dr. Chen felt torn between medical protocol and something deeper, an understanding that this situation was beyond anything in her training or experience. Every instinct told her to keep Zara safely inside the hospital, but another voice, quieter and wiser, suggested that maybe the normal rules didn't apply here. "If we take her outside," Dr. Chen said slowly, "we stay close to the building. Any sign of trouble, and we bring her back inside immediately." The decision felt momentous, like they were crossing a line between the world they knew and something entirely new. As they prepared to take Zara outside, each of the adults felt that their lives were about to change in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But before they could move toward the exit, the hospital's main doors opened, and two figures walked inside. They were tall and elegant, moving with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly. The woman had long silver hair that seemed to catch light that wasn't there, and the man's eyes held the same golden flecks that had appeared in Zara's. "We've come for our daughter," the woman said, her voice carrying the sound of wind through leaves and water over stones. Everyone in the lobby turned to stare at the newcomers, and immediately understood that these were not the Michael and Lisa Thompson who had brought Zara to the hospital 3 days ago. These beings, for they seemed more than human, radiated the same otherworldly energy that surrounded Zara. "Who are you?" Dr. Chen asked, though part of her already knew the answer would challenge everything she believed about reality. The woman smiled, and her expression held the same ancient wisdom they had seen in Zara's eyes. "We are the guardians of the forest," she said simply, "and it is time for our daughter to come home." Zara's face lit up with pure joy when she saw the two figures. She reached out her small arms toward them, babbling excitedly in a language that sounded like birdsong mixed with the whisper of wind through trees. The golden glow around her intensified, and suddenly the entire lobby was filled with the warm, comforting light. "Wait," Dr. Chen said, stepping forward despite her fear. "You can't just take her. She's been our patient. We have procedures." The man, whose eyes held the deep green of ancient forests, looked at Dr. Chen with gentle understanding. "Doctor, Patricia Chen, you have cared for our daughter with exceptional love and dedication. For that, we are eternally grateful." "How do you know my name?" Dr. Chen asked, though she was beginning to understand that these beings knew far more than any human records could contain. "We know the hearts of all who serve with compassion," the woman replied. "You have helped save not just 3 bears today, but the balance of an entire forest ecosystem. The mother bear is the matriarch of the largest bear family in this region. Without her, dozens of cubs would have become orphaned." Arya, still holding Zara, felt tears streaming down her face. "She's not human, is she?" "She is what you might call a bridge," the man explained. "Born to walk between worlds, to help humans remember their connection to the natural world. Every few generations, one such as her is born when the need is greatest." Dr. Reeves, who had come back inside, looked between Zara and her parents. "But she was sick when she arrived. She had a fever, symptoms of infection." The woman nodded sadly. The sickness of the forest had become her sickness. As the animals suffered from pollution, deforestation, and climate change, so did she suffer. But today, by helping you save the bear family, she has helped heal a wound in the natural world. The fever has broken. Outside, the gathering of animals had grown even larger. It seemed that every creature within miles had come to witness this moment. They stood in perfect harmony, predators next to prey, large animals alongside small ones, all united in their respect for what had transpired. Marcus, who had been silent through this revelation, finally spoke. "What happens now?" "To her, to us, to what we've learned." "Now," the man said, "you return to your lives with the knowledge that magic still exists in this world, that love and compassion can work miracles, that the barrier between human and animal is far thinner than most people believe." Zara looked around the lobby one more time, her golden eyes touching each of the humans who had helped her save the bear family. She spoke one final word, clear and strong. Remember. As she said it, each person in the room felt a surge of warmth and understanding. They saw flashes of their own connections to nature. Childhood memories of wonder at butterflies and shooting stars, moments of peace in gardens and forests, times when they had felt truly alive in the natural world. "We will remember," Arya promised, gently handing Zara to her true mother. "All of it." The woman cradled Zara with infinite tenderness. "She will not forget you either, and should the forest ever need your help again, you will know." As the family of guardians walked toward the exit, something magical happened. With each step they took, flowers began blooming in the potted plants around the lobby. The fluorescent lights seemed to warm and soften. Even the sterile hospital air began to smell of pine trees and wildflowers. Outside, the bear family was waiting. As the guardians emerged from the hospital, the mother bear approached with her 2 cubs following close behind. She stopped in front of Zara and made soft, grateful sounds. The baby reached down from her mother's arms and gently touched the bear's massive snout. For a moment, the connection between them was visible, streams of golden light flowing between child and animal, a bond that transcended species and touched the very essence of life itself. The mother bear then did something that brought tears to the eyes of everyone watching. She stood up on her hind legs and placed her massive paws together in front of her chest, bowing deeply to the family of guardians. One by one, every animal in the gathered crowd followed suit. Deer bowed their graceful heads. Birds dipped their wings. Even the smallest creatures stood as tall as they could in gestures of respect and gratitude. The forest itself seemed to sigh with contentment as the guardian family began walking toward the tree line. With each step, the very air around them shimmered with life and magic. Flowers bloomed in their footsteps. Trees straightened and grew greener. Even the clouds in the sky seemed to part, allowing golden sunlight to stream down upon the scene. Inside the hospital, the staff watched from the windows as the impossible procession made its way into the forest. The bear family walked alongside the guardians, no longer wild animals but companions on a journey back to the heart of nature. As they reached the edge of the trees, Zara turned one last time to wave at the hospital. Her small hand moved back and forth, and with it, a final blessing seemed to settle over the building and everyone inside it. Then they were gone, disappearing into the forest, as if they had never been anything more than a beautiful dream. But the evidence of their visit remained. The lobby was filled with blooming plants that hadn't flowered in years. The air carried the scent of wildflowers that didn't grow anywhere near the hospital. And most importantly, in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed the miracle, there was a new understanding of what was possible when love and compassion guided human actions. Dr. Chen stood at the window long after the forest had swallowed the magical procession. "No one will ever believe this," she said quietly. "Does it matter?" Arya asked, still feeling the warmth of Zara's final blessing. "We know what happened. We know what we saw." Marcus nodded, wiping tears from his eyes. "And we know that there's still magic in this world. Still hope." In the weeks that followed, Pine Valley Medical Center became known for something extraordinary. The staff found themselves more compassionate, more intuitive, more capable of healing than they had ever been before. Patients recovered faster. Families found comfort more easily. The very atmosphere of the hospital had changed, infused with the love and magic that a special little girl had brought into their lives. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the moon was full, staff members would look out the windows toward the forest and see a gentle golden glow moving between the trees. They would smile, knowing that somewhere in the wilderness, the guardians were still watching over the natural world, and that their brief encounter with the impossible had left them forever changed. The story of the baby who rang the fire alarm to save a bear cub became legend at the hospital. New staff members would hear it from veterans who had been there that day, told in hushed, reverent tones around break-room tables. But it was never just a story to them. It was a reminder that miracles happen when we open our hearts to the impossible, that love truly can bridge any gap, and that sometimes the most extraordinary magic comes in the smallest, most innocent packages. In the forest, the bear family thrived, their story spreading through the animal kingdom as a tale of hope and healing. And deep in the woods, where ancient trees held the secrets of centuries, a golden-eyed child grew up learning to be the bridge between worlds, carrying within her heart the memory of the humans who had helped her save her first family. The memory of their compassion would guide her always, reminding her that even in a world that often seemed to have forgotten its connection to nature, there were still those whose hearts remained open to wonder, to love, and to the beautiful possibility that we are all connected in ways we can barely imagine. And in that connection there was hope for all the world.